The hook begins in a late night, dimly lit kitchen, a choice that's anything but arbitrary. The physical darkness mirrors Ethan Walker's internal state: confusion, disbelief, and a creeping sense of despair. Kitchens are typically associated with warmth, nourishment, and domestic comfort. But here the familiar space is rendered alien, amplifying the shock of discovery. Ethan's actions are subtle yet telling. He holds Claire's phone, reading the message over and over, each repetition layering his disbelief with mounting hurt. The silence of the house is a character in itself. Claire sleeps unaware in the next room, her presence both comforting and painfully distant. The late-night setting also intensifies vulnerability. In those quiet hours, there is no distraction, no social buffer, only Ethan's raw, unfiltered emotions. By situating the audience in this intimate, private moment, the scene establishes a psychological immediacy. Viewers are not just witnesses. They are confined within the same tense space as Ethan, feeling the weight of the betrayal along with him. Every small sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the subtle creak of floorboards, becomes magnified, paralleling the way minor details gain catastrophic significance when trust is fractured. This environment primes the audience for empathy, allowing them to experience the shock and isolation that accompany the revelation of infidelity. It also subtly signals that the narrative will delve into the interiority of characters, focusing on nuanced emotional beats rather than external action. Central to this hook is the contrast between Ethan and Claire, whose emotional distance and intimacy, or lack thereof, set the stage for the story's tension. Ethan's personality is quietly loving and introspective, a man who internalizes emotions rather than exploding in dramatic displays. This restraint makes his reaction to betrayal all the more poignant, as his shock is paired with a careful, almost painful deliberation about what the message truly signifies. The audience witnesses him grappling with denial, replaying past interactions, and questioning his understanding of the marriage. Claire, in contrast, is oblivious at this moment, but the text hints at a deeper preoccupation, suggesting her emotional drift. The juxtaposition emphasizes not only Ethan's vulnerability, but also the chasm forming between the couple. By portraying Ethan's internal struggle, his hurt, disbelief, and tentative fear of confronting reality, the narrative allows viewers to connect deeply with his experience. The hook doesn't rely on dramatic confrontation. Instead, it captures the quiet, devastating rupture that can occur in relationships, making it universally relatable. Audiences recognize the subtle signs of distance, the small betrayals that accumulate over time, and the internal torment of discovering them. This character-driven focus ensures that the hook resonates emotionally, making the audience invested in what Ethan will do next, and what this revelation means for the couple's fragile equilibrium. The text message, deceptively simple, "I can't wait to see you again," serves as a catalyst for the central conflict of the story. Its brevity belies the depth of disruption it brings, instantly shifting the narrative from quiet domesticity to psychological tension. This moment captures the essence of betrayal. It's not always violent or overt. Sometimes it's contained in small, almost mundane gestures that carry enormous emotional weight. Ethan's silent grappling forces the audience to sit with the ambiguity and uncertainty of his next move. Will he confront Claire, retreat into quiet despair, or seek evidence of a larger pattern? This tension drives immediate engagement. Viewers are pulled into the duality of intimacy and alienation. Ethan's love and trust are intact, yet shaken to the core. The hook functions as a prism, refracting complex themes: the fragility of trust, the quiet erosion of marital bonds, and the human struggle to reconcile love with betrayal. By immersing the audience in Ethan's internal crisis, the scene ensures an emotional investment that transcends plot mechanics. The conflict is not just external, but deeply internal, with stakes that feel intimate, urgent, and painfully real. This emotional layering sets the tone for the rest of the story, promising an exploration of heartbreak, moral ambiguity, and the painstaking journey toward truth, reconciliation, or irrevocable change. The audience is drawn not just to what happens, but to how it feels, creating a compelling, visceral entry into the narrative. Ethan Walker's character is crafted to evoke both admiration and empathy. As a corporate lawyer, he embodies dedication, discipline, and intellectual rigor. His work ethic reflects his inner desire to provide stability and security, both financially and emotionally, for his marriage. However, beneath this professional competence lies a man who struggles with emotional articulation, particularly when it comes to expressing his love and vulnerabilities. Ethan deeply loves Claire, yet his reserved nature often translates to quiet frustration, misinterpreted distance, or missed opportunities for intimacy. This creates a subtle tension in the marriage. His love is constant and sincere, but unspoken, leaving Claire emotionally unfulfilled without Ethan realizing it. Flashbacks to their early marriage moments, like his heartfelt proposal, shared laughter over late-night conversations, or small, tender gestures contrast sharply with the present. These glimpses of past happiness reinforce the stakes. The betrayal that the audience later witnesses feels like a profound rupture of something once pure. By showing Ethan's silent struggles, both at work and at home, the narrative fosters empathy. Viewers recognize the universal struggle of loving deeply while failing to communicate, making his later heartbreak intensely personal. This careful layering ensures that Ethan is more than a passive victim of betrayal. He is a multidimensional character whose emotional restraint and dedication heighten the tragedy of the impending marital crisis. Claire Walker, by contrast, is a character defined by complexity and internal conflict. Once a driven marketing executive, her career shaped her identity, ambition, and independence. Marriage, once a dream, has gradually begun to feel confining. The audience sees a woman wrestling with quiet dissatisfaction, small irritations, moments of emotional withdrawal, and subtle longing for attention she no longer receives at home. Flashbacks to earlier marital bliss, shared trips, spontaneous dates, or Ethan's thoughtful gestures highlight what has been lost over time. Claire's emotional drift is not malicious. It is born from unmet needs and a yearning for connection, which she inadvertently seeks outside the marriage. Enter Lucas, her colleague, charismatic, attentive, and emotionally available in ways Ethan has not been able to be. Lucas acts as a mirror to the affection Claire craves, setting up the inevitable tension. By illustrating both her past joy and present restlessness, the narrative gives Claire depth and relatability. Audiences understand that her choices are complex, shaped by longing, frustration, and human fallibility. This setup ensures the betrayal does not feel gratuitous, but emerges naturally from her emotional landscape, amplifying the story's realism and emotional impact. Supporting characters and everyday routines provide texture, grounding the story in realism while highlighting the growing fracture in Ethan and Claire's marriage. Maya, Ethan's sister, serves as a voice of reason, offering perspective and warnings about subtle warning signs that Ethan might overlook. Through her interactions, audiences gain insight into Ethan's internal blind spots and the relational dynamics at play. The depiction of their daily life, mundane routines, minor arguments, lack of intimacy, and subtle coldness from Claire contrasts sharply with the vibrant early marriage flashbacks, emphasizing the slow erosion of connection over time. Ethan's frustrations at work, where he faces high stakes and moral dilemmas, mirror his domestic challenges, reinforcing his sense of being trapped between professional duty and personal longing. This duality deepens audience empathy, as viewers see a man struggling silently in multiple spheres of life. By interweaving backstory, current marital tension, and nuanced supporting characters, The narrative builds emotional stakes, making the eventual betrayal profoundly personal and devastating. It is not merely an act of infidelity. It is the culmination of years of miscommunication, unmet needs, and emotional drift, setting the stage for a story that examines love, loss, and the human cost of unspoken truths. The inciting incident pivots the narrative from tension to action, triggered by Claire's seemingly innocuous late return from a work dinner. At first glance, this is a typical scenario in married life: late nights due to work obligations. But the discovery of a hotel receipt shatters that perception. The object itself, mundane in appearance, becomes a symbol of betrayal, transforming Ethan's quiet domestic world into a realm of suspicion and emotional turmoil. This moment forces the audience to confront the fragility of trust. Something as small as a paper receipt can unravel years of shared history and commitment. Ethan's reaction is immediate but restrained. He is paralyzed, caught between disbelief, hurt, and the desperate urge to maintain composure. This restraint deepens the emotional complexity of the scene, illustrating his internal struggle. He chooses not to confront Claire instantly, creating suspense and tension for both characters and audience. The inciting incident, therefore, is not just the discovery itself, but the emotional paralysis it produces. Ethan's silent processing allows viewers to inhabit his perspective, feeling the slow, creeping realization of betrayal alongside him. This also contrasts with typical melodramatic reveals, instead presenting a nuanced, psychologically grounded response that heightens empathy. The audience is drawn into the private intensity of the moment, witnessing the shift from normalcy to an emotional crisis that destabilizes the entire story's equilibrium. As Ethan processes the receipt, subtle shifts in behavior mark the growing tension between him and Claire. Claire, perceptive to emotional cues even when unaware of the full extent of Ethan's knowledge, senses his suspicion and becomes slightly defensive. Her defensiveness is not overtly accusatory, but small gestures avoiding eye contact, fidgeting, or offering unnecessary explanations create a charged atmosphere. This tension emphasizes the widening emotional chasm in the marriage. Meanwhile, Ethan's restraint begins to evolve into quiet investigation. He starts checking texts, scrutinizing receipts, and observing Claire's social media activity. This behavior is motivated by a mixture of fear, curiosity, and the desperate need for confirmation. The audience witnesses the duality of his emotional state, deep love for his wife, intertwined with the painful realization that she may have violated their trust. By juxtaposing Ethan's covert actions with Claire's defensive reactions, the narrative heightens suspense without requiring overt confrontation. The tension is psychological, subtle, and emotionally resonant, creating an intricate dance of suspicion and evasion. This approach makes the betrayal feel immediate and deeply personal. Every glance, every hesitation, every minor interaction becomes a potential sign of guilt or truth, pulling the audience deeper into the couple's strained dynamic. It also sets up the structural momentum of the story. Ethan cannot return to emotional equilibrium, and every subsequent choice carries the weight of this escalating tension. The inciting incident fundamentally transforms Ethan's emotional landscape, forcing him into an agonizing internal conflict. He is torn between love and loyalty, hurt and betrayal, and the instinct to confront versus the need for evidence. This triad of conflicting desires drives narrative propulsion, as Ethan can no longer ignore the truth that he has stumbled upon. The audience feels the suspense of his decision-making process. Should he confront Claire directly, continue observing silently, or seek external counsel from trusted characters like his sister? The hotel receipt serves as both a literal and symbolic trigger, crystallizing the ambiguity and moral complexity of human relationships. Unlike a sudden, explosive confrontation, This gradual escalation allows for a nuanced exploration of character psychology. Ethan's internal struggle wanting to preserve the relationship while grappling with his own pain adds layers of realism and emotional depth. This moment also defines the stakes. The story is no longer abstractly about marital tension. It becomes a visceral examination of trust, desire, and ethical choices. By compelling Ethan to act, the inciting incident sets the trajectory for the narrative, ensuring that subsequent plot developments, confrontations, revelations, and personal reckonings emerge organically from established character motivations. The audience is left emotionally invested, anticipating how Ethan's love, hurt, and moral compass will shape the unfolding drama, providing the story with a compelling, psychologically grounded momentum. As the narrative moves into rising tension, Ethan's internal conflict becomes the driving force of emotional engagement. The audience is invited deeply into his mind, where love, hurt, pride, and fear collide. He grapples with a pivotal dilemma. Should he confront Claire directly, risking a confrontation that might shatter the remnants of their relationship? Or should he silently protect his dignity, gathering evidence and preserving a sense of control? This psychological tug-of-war consumes his thoughts, causing him to second-guess every interaction, every glance, and every word from Claire. Sleep eludes him as he replays past conversations, trying to identify the subtle warning signs he may have overlooked. Work performance begins to slip as his focus fractures, highlighting the pervasive impact of emotional betrayal. The audience is made acutely aware of the slow erosion of his mental stability, emphasizing the human cost of emotional betrayal beyond mere marital discord. By centering Ethan's inner turmoil, the story deepens empathy, making viewers experience the crushing weight of uncertainty and moral conflict alongside him. Each choice he makes, whether to speak, observe, or remain silent, carries the potential for irreversible consequences. And this precarious balancing act creates narrative momentum. Ethan's restraint, his silent suffering, and his meticulous observation of Claire's behavior amplify the suspense, keeping audiences emotionally invested and desperate to see how he will navigate the impossible intersection of love, dignity, and betrayal. Claire's duplicity intensifies the emotional stakes, creating a stark contrast to Ethan's introspection and loyalty. Lucas, her colleague and emotional foil to Ethan, begins to openly flirt, offering the attention and validation that Claire increasingly craves. Ethan witnesses subtle yet devastating signs of infidelity, laughs that once belonged exclusively to him, secretive meetings, texts he intercepts but hesitates to confront directly. These moments, seemingly small but emotionally charged, accumulate like fractures in the foundation of his trust. Claire's behavior is layered. She experiences guilt, yet rationalizes her actions, telling herself that emotional fulfillment is a legitimate need unmet within the marriage. This rationalization increases audience frustration with her character, while simultaneously deepening empathy for Ethan. The tension is psychological as much as it is relational. Viewers feel the slow, painful unraveling of intimacy through the juxtaposition of past affection and present betrayal. By showcasing Claire's duplicity in incremental, emotionally resonant moments, the story creates suspense without requiring overt drama. Each small act of emotional betrayal serves as a ticking clock, heightening anticipation for the inevitable confrontation. The audience's emotional investment is thus dual. They empathize with Ethan's suffering, while simultaneously feeling exasperated with Claire's rationalizations, creating a potent blend of tension and anticipation that fuels narrative momentum. The involvement of supporting characters, particularly Maya, Ethan's sister, heightens both emotional pressure and narrative urgency. Maya functions as a voice of reason and a mirror to Ethan's internal struggle, advising him to act before the situation spirals beyond repair. Her counsel introduces moral and temporal urgency, forcing Ethan to reconcile his natural desire for dignity with the need to confront reality. This external input intersects with his internal conflict, creating layered tension that affects his decision-making, emotional stability, and daily functioning. As Ethan's trust continues to crumble, he begins losing sleep, focus, and self-confidence, making him more vulnerable to mistakes, misinterpretations, and emotional overload. Claire's guilt and rationalizations operate in parallel, creating a dissonant emotional landscape where both characters are acting under the pressure of unmet needs, social expectations, and personal insecurities. The audience witnesses the slow unraveling of a once solid marital bond, while simultaneously feeling the urgency of resolution. The stakes are not abstract, they are deeply human, immediate, and relatable. By carefully escalating tension through internal struggle, relational duplicity, and family intervention, this segment ensures the audience remains invested, desperate for clarity, confrontation, or reconciliation. The emotional landscape is rich, multidimensional, and fraught with suspense, making every small interaction between Ethan and Claire carry weight, further propelling the story toward its inevitable climactic turning point. The climax begins with Ethan reaching a critical threshold, unable to suppress the mounting tension any longer. After days of suspicion, silent observation, and internal struggle, he confronts Claire at home, a setting that once symbolized safety and intimacy. Now charged with accusation and raw emotion, the domestic space transforms into a psychological battlefield, amplifying the intensity of the scene. Ethan's approach to the confrontation is layered. He balances the need for truth with the instinct to preserve his dignity, making his presence both restrained and powerful. The audience is placed directly in the emotional eye of the storm, witnessing the culmination of his internal struggle and the external manifestations of Claire's duplicity. Every gesture, tone of voice, and pause is weighted with history and heartbreak. This turning point is significant because it transitions the narrative from suspense to revelation. Ethan is no longer a passive observer. He is an active agent confronting the consequences of a fractured marriage. The confrontation itself is intimate yet explosive, highlighting the emotional stakes that have been meticulously built through earlier scenes. Viewers experience a visceral mix of anticipation, dread, and empathy, as they have been emotionally primed to witness the fallout of betrayal and the unraveling of long-suppressed frustrations. The argument escalates quickly into a torrent of emotion. Claire admits the emotional affair, but her words are not simple confession, they are complex rationalizations. She claims she is unhappy, not ready to leave him yet, conveying a paradoxical mixture of guilt, desire, and self-interest. This statement shocks Ethan, combining heartbreak with incredulity, as he grapples with the reality that his love has been insufficient to meet Claire's unspoken needs. Her admission opens a floodgate of emotions: rage at the betrayal, sorrow for the fractures in their relationship, and a sense of helplessness over the emotional gap that has grown unnoticed. The audience is drawn into this tempest, feeling each rising pitch of anger, each tremor of sorrow, and the sharp sting of disillusionment. The scene's power lies in its authenticity. The argument is not merely dramatic. It is deeply human, capturing the complexity of conflicting desires, unmet expectations, and emotional vulnerability. By witnessing both characters' raw responses, viewers gain a nuanced understanding of the relational dynamics that allowed infidelity to occur, amplifying tension while maintaining empathy for Ethan's pain. The twist crystallizes when Claire attempts to justify her emotional affair, revealing that Lucas represents the emotional connection Ethan has been unable to provide. This revelation is devastating not just because of the betrayal itself, but because it forces Ethan to confront the inadequacies and blind spots in their marriage. The audience realizes that the betrayal is as much about failed communication neglected emotional needs, and unspoken longing as it is about desire for someone else. Ethan experiences a complex mix of rage, heartbreak, and self-reflection, recognizing that the affair functions as a mirror reflecting their marital shortcomings. This moment elevates the emotional intensity, transforming the story from a simple tale of infidelity into a profound exploration of human relationships, intimacy, and vulnerability. The confrontation leaves viewers on edge, invested in what Ethan will do next, uncertain whether he will seek reconciliation, revenge, or personal liberation. By combining raw emotional exposure with a psychologically resonant twist, this climax ensures the narrative delivers a powerful, unforgettable emotional punch, cementing the story's impact and driving forward the final act of resolution. The resolution begins with Ethan making a conscious, transformative choice. He prioritizes self-respect over silent suffering. After the emotional devastation of betrayal and the intensity of confrontation, he recognizes that clinging to anger, denial, or a broken marriage would only perpetuate his pain. This decision marks a crucial turning point in his emotional arc, shifting the narrative focus from reactive despair to proactive self-empowerment. Ethan's move into a temporary apartment is symbolic, creating physical and emotional space to rebuild his life on his own terms. Therapy sessions provide structured avenues for processing grief, frustration, and disillusionment, illustrating that healing is intentional and requires both introspection and professional guidance. Reconnecting with friends and passions long neglected highlights the multidimensional nature of recovery, emphasizing that personal fulfillment is broader than romantic attachment. The audience witnesses a man reclaiming agency over his life, making choices that nurture self-worth rather than resentment. This approach ensures that the resolution feels earned. Ethan's empowerment is not superficial or sudden, but the culmination of internal struggle, reflection, and deliberate action. By focusing on internal growth rather than retaliation or reconciliation, the narrative demonstrates a mature, nuanced approach to dealing with heartbreak, resonating with viewers who have experienced emotional betrayal themselves. This choice also reframes the story's thematic focus, illustrating that dignity and self-respect are victories as significant as romantic or relational resolution. While Ethan rebuilds, Claire is left to confront the ramifications of her choices. The story carefully avoids melodramatic punishment, instead allowing natural consequences to unfold. Her emotional reliance on Lucas diminishes, and the audience sees that the temporary escape she sought through the affair does not replace the deep intimacy and stability she once had with Ethan. This contrast underscores the consequences of emotional neglect and poor communication, reinforcing the narrative's moral and psychological grounding. Ethan's empowerment arc is accentuated precisely because he does not seek revenge. He does not manipulate, shame, or try to reclaim Claire through force or guilt. Instead, his actions communicate self-respect and personal agency, demonstrating that growth emerges from autonomy rather than dependence on others' failures or mistakes. This dynamic provides viewers with a sense of catharsis. The story resolves in a way that is emotionally satisfying, authentic, and thematically consistent, emphasizing the power of choice, accountability, and intentional healing. By allowing Claire to face the emotional reality of her decisions without resorting to dramatized punishment, the narrative maintains a realistic and resonant portrayal of human consequences, highlighting the complexity of relationships, moral ambiguity, and personal responsibility. Supporting characters, particularly Maya, play a pivotal role in solidifying Ethan's empowerment. Maya acts as both emotional anchor and guide, offering wisdom, perspective, and encouragement that help Ethan rebuild his confidence and reconnect with his sense of identity. Outside the marriage, her influence underscores that healing is often supported by community, empathy, and authentic relationships. Meanwhile, Lucas's role fades, signaling to the audience that Ethan's recovery is self-driven and not contingent upon external validation or romantic closure. This subtle narrative choice reinforces the story's overarching message. True empowerment emerges from self-awareness, agency, and intentional personal growth. By the arc's conclusion, Ethan embodies resilience and dignity. He has transformed heartbreak into an opportunity for self-discovery, emotional maturity, and renewed purpose. The resolution leaves the audience with a sense of hope and inspiration, illustrating that even in the aftermath of betrayal, individuals can reclaim autonomy, restore their emotional equilibrium, and forge a life defined by integrity, fulfillment, and inner strength. The empowerment arc thus functions as both emotional and thematic closure, providing a deeply satisfying, humanistic conclusion that resonates long after the story ends. The final moment opens with a quiet, contemplative scene, Ethan walking along a park path at sunset. The choice of setting is deliberate. The golden hues of the sun and the natural beauty of the park reflect the serenity and acceptance he has begun to cultivate after months of emotional upheaval. The pacing is slow, allowing the audience to inhabit Ethan's inner world, where pain and love coexist with newfound clarity. Observing a couple laughing together triggers a subtle, nuanced emotional response. Ethan smiles faintly, but the smile is not rooted in bitterness or longing. It is a testament to his journey toward acceptance. The scene emphasizes reflection over reaction, allowing the audience to feel the cumulative weight of his healing process. By showing him in a moment of quiet observation rather than dramatic confrontation, the narrative reinforces that closure is often internal and understated. The juxtaposition of the couple's joy with Ethan's calm composure underscores his emotional growth. He has acknowledged the past, processed betrayal, and arrived at a place where love and hurt no longer define him entirely. This reflective beat encapsulates the arc of his character from shock, despair, and betrayal to contemplation, understanding, and subtle joy, leaving viewers emotionally connected to his journey. The act of deleting Claire's contact from his phone functions as a symbolic gesture that externalizes Ethan's internal closure. It signifies the end of emotional entanglement, the final acknowledgement that the relationship and the pain associated with it no longer governs his life. This gesture is understated yet profoundly powerful because it conveys resolution without melodrama. The audience interprets this act as a tangible representation of choice. Ethan chooses self-respect, autonomy, and emotional freedom over resentment or attachment. It complements the quiet beat in the park, reinforcing the narrative's thematic focus on empowerment and healing. By integrating small, symbolic actions with internal emotional work, the story communicates closure in a way that feels authentic and relatable. The deletion of the contact does not erase love or pain, it acknowledges them, honors the experiences, and establishes boundaries. This subtle but meaningful act leaves the audience with an emotional resonance that is more enduring than overt dramatics. The story's power lies in its simplicity. Small actions can carry monumental emotional significance when aligned with personal growth and reflection. Ethan's choice demonstrates that the ultimate triumph is not revenge, reconciliation, or external validation, but the reclamation of one's emotional agency and integrity. The closing image of Ethan gazing at the horizon, breathing freely, encapsulates the narrative's emotional payoff. The horizon symbolizes potential, new beginnings, and the open-ended possibilities of life beyond heartbreak. Ethan's posture and expression communicate liberation and resilience. He has honored his pain and love, but he refuses to be defined by them. The scene delivers catharsis by illustrating that emotional healing is a gradual, intentional process, and that dignity and self-respect are the ultimate rewards. The audience leaves with a sense of resolution that is both satisfying and hopeful.